Hello, everyone. This is Jim Renacci, former United States Congressman, former businessman here in Ohio, but also now we have the Buckeye War Room podcast, where we're going to be talking about issues around the state, trying to help prepare for the November election and bringing up issues that are important to Ohio voters, taxpayers, and citizens across this state. This year, of course, we have a big election, presidential election. We also have a Senate race. But the one race that we got to really keep a close eye on are Supreme Court races. The terms of the 3 Ohio Supreme Court justices are expiring on December 31st, 2024. The 3 seats are up for partisan election on November 5th, 2024. We all know the primary was March 19th, 2024. And the filing deadline was December 20th, 23. All of that and many of that has already occurred. But we need to remember that with a total of 7 justices on the Ohio Supreme Court, 3 justices are running for re-election in 2 seats, and a 3rd seat is contested in the partisan elections. First is Justice Michael P. Donnelly, a Democrat. He advanced to the general election against Megan Shanahan. Justices Melanie Stewart, a Democrat, and Joseph Dieters will face off against each other. And also, we have a contested race between Lisa Forbes, a Democrat, and Dan Hawkins, our Republican candidate. Today, I have the pleasure of having Dan Hawkins on to really talk about the race, but I'm hoping anybody that watches this realizes how important this Supreme Court races are and how important it is for us to get our 3 Republican candidates across the finish line in November. We didn't do it in 2018. We lost 2 seats. We didn't do it in 2020. It lost a 3rd seat. We cannot afford to lose any more seats, and we really need to hold all 3 of these seats to have a solid majority in our Supreme Court. With that, I want to welcome Dan Hawkins on. Sir, thank you for being with us.
No, thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me and for highlighting the importance of this race.
It is important. And can you kind of give us an overview of your race and how it's really been out on the trail? You've been crisscrossing the state of Ohio. I understand what that's like. I did 2 statewide elections. It's a lot of work. It takes away from your family. But I do know how important it is. And I know you know how important it is. Tell me how it's going.
Yeah, it's going really well. I think obviously people are excited about the presidential election this year and, of course, the hotly contested United States Senate race. But when we point out that there are these other important statewide races this year for the Ohio Supreme Court, and people have seen recently how important, obviously, courts and judges are, especially with some of the decisions coming out of New York and Colorado last year. I think it really sets a tone for people to realize just that how important these races are for the Supreme Court, how important judges and courts are to our system.
Well, I tell you, you mentioned something there. You mentioned a presidential race. One of the concerns I have, of course, is that former President Trump really believes he has Ohio won. He's not going to be campaigning here. You're not going to see him pulling the ticket like many times the Republican nominee does. I mean, do you have any concern there? I know there are a lot of people that want to vote for President Trump, but what happens is, in many times, once they think that President Trump's going to win, they really just say, well, I don't really need to go out and vote. Are you hearing any of that? Are you seeing any of that? Are you concerned about any of that?
I know the folks I meet with are really excited to go vote for the presidential race, but you're right. If it gets closer to November and even Joe Biden and his team aren't even going to compete in Ohio, there is a concern that if some people think the presidential race is in the bag in Ohio, that they decide to skip the election altogether. Our goal is to make sure that people know that this year's election is so much more important than just the presidential race and the Senate race, and to make sure we get out those voters who care about our courts, care about the state of Ohio, because again, it's Ohio Supreme Court race, and these races will determine what Ohio law is for years to come. So really getting that message out so people understand just how significant this race is, because I know the other side is pushing very heavy into this race. It's the only Supreme Court race in the country that can flip from one side, one party control to the next, which is something that the Ohio Democratic Party is promoting heavily. So they're going to come out in full force, and we need to make sure that that Ohio respects the rule of law and elects judges who are going to respect the rule of law, respect the Constitution, and follow the law as is written, and not legislate from the bench or implement policy from the bench, which is unfortunately sometimes what we see when we have activist judges who get on the court.
What's interesting, you mentioned the Senate race, and the one concern I have is, look, I ran against Sherrod Brown 6 years ago. He's going to have a tremendous amount of money. He's going to have the support because they really want to try and hold on to the Senate. So he's going to have a lot of national support. It's definitely one of the spotlighted races. He's already opened up 15 or 16 campaign headquarters around the state to try and be really the top of the ticket for Ohio on the Democrat side. And he's going to be talking about abortion. He's going to be talking about issues that really try and bring the moderates and the independents out. And we know that Ohio is not really a Republican state when you look at registered voters. It's really not a Democrat state either. When you look at registered voters, it's an independent state. He's going to be driving those independents to come out and vote. And I think that's going to be a key issue. And he's going to say, look, we need to bring Democrat judges onto the bench to support your rights, your rights as a woman, all of those things. I mean, I can almost see his campaign and how he's going to be supporting your opponents. What are your thoughts there? How do you contest that? What are you going to do to make sure he doesn't get a foothold in this state with some of those issues?
Right. Well, obviously how Senator Brown has had great success in Ohio over the last few elections. And you're right. I mean, the top of the ticket, as far as they're concerned, is more if Joe Biden isn't going to compete in Ohio, which by all accounts it sounds like that might be the case, that Sherrod Brown will be their top of the ticket, so to speak. I know that I'm going to continue to get out there to voters in all parts of the state. Of the 88 counties, I think I've hit about 60 of the 88 so far, well on my way to get the rest of them. And I know when I reach out to voters, and I talked about my record as a judge for 11 years and my previous experience as a Special Victims Unit prosecutor, head of the Special Victims Unit in Franklin County for 13 years, the very serious cases I've dealt with, my reputation as somebody who is fair and impartial, but also someone who follows the law and respects the Constitution and will protect their freedom. The more I get out there and the more I get that message out there, the hope, the plan is that folks, maybe they go ahead and still vote for, maybe they vote for Trump and split their ticket and vote for Sherrod Brown, but then when they get to those Supreme Court races, recognize the importance of having a judge like me on the Ohio Supreme Court that's going to protect their freedoms, uphold the rule of law, and protect public safety.
Well, I do think that's important. You are a judge. I think that's important for people to know. You already have a history, and it's a good, solid history. What do you think we can do to help you amplify the importance of your race and actually the other two Supreme Court races as well?
Yeah, well, we've seen that obviously courts matter, judges matter. When the Colorado Supreme Court earlier this year on its own threw President Trump off the ballot without any hearing, without any due process, just threw him off the ballot, that was quickly overturned unanimously by the United States Supreme Court. We saw the trial that President Trump went through in New York. That case is still ongoing, obviously, with sentencing. But we see basically how important courts are and judges are important, right? And this Supreme Court race this year, again, it's so vital, it's so important for the future of Ohio, for our state. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the state legislature passes or what the governor signs or vetoes in the law. if four guys and gals in black robes in Columbus decide the law should say otherwise, or that the Constitution says otherwise, then that's the ball game. So we need to make sure folks know that that these Supreme Court races are critical for the future of Ohio, in order to protect their freedom, for purposes of public safety. Obviously, is vital moving forward. That courts and judges matter.
It's interesting, and I think what really has to hit home with the Supreme Court races is what would it look like if we did have 4 Democrat judges and 3 Republican judges. I know what that was like many years ago. I know what it was like as a business owner. I know what it was like when it came to many hearings that went to the Supreme Court and affected businesses, affected life in general. Just some of your thoughts. I mean, do you have any thoughts as to what would that look like? Because I do think that's really the key to this. People need to realize what it would be like and what it was like years ago when the Ohio Supreme Court had a Democrat majority.
Yeah. You look at particularly the 1990s when we had what most would call, I would call, more of an activist Ohio Supreme Court. You saw it was hard to, businesses left, the legal and regulatory environment in the state was really a mess. And so having judges who follow the law as it's written, who don't try to rewrite the law, implement policy, rewrite statutes or contracts, just follow the law, the plain language of the law, creates that stable and predictable legal environment that businesses need, not just to thrive and provide good jobs, but also to provide good wages for families, and good, good paying jobs and fair wages to families. Businesses, the industries, they need that stable and predictable legal environment if they're going to continue to do business in Ohio and to be able to make provide those good paying jobs for Ohioans.
Well, look, we are going to be pushing this out to thousands of people around the state. And I'd really like you to tell everyone who sees this, explain to them how they can help. I know donations are important. Yeah. That's always a key. But what can they do? What can we do to help you and the other Supreme Court candidates who are running? What can we do to help?
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. First of all, and again, thank you for having me and to help me highlight the importance of these races. For myself, you can go to hawkinsforohio.com to learn more about myself, my background. You can sign up to volunteer, donate, all the help, the better. But when it comes out to getting the word out to your friends, family, coworkers, the importance of these races, we've been telling people that if everybody has a big Rolodex, a big email list, that on that day before the first day of early voting, to blast out an email to all your family, friends, contacts, and explain to them the importance of these races, and if you support Judge Dan Hawkins for Supreme Court, please vote for him. And then throughout the voting period, because of course we don't have election day anymore, we have election months. So that first day of early voting all the way up to election day, email, call, text family and friends and let them know not to skip over these races. Don't just go into the voting booth and vote for the president and Senate and leave. We need to make sure from the White House to the courthouse, the State House, people vote all the way down the line, hopefully for myself and other conservative causes.
Well, I heard what you just said, but I want to add one thing. I still fear this. It's that person who says, President Trump's already won, I don't need to go vote. Or, they think as we get closer, the Senate race is already taken care of. I don't need to I don't need to go vote. The real key is they need to realize there are 3 important levels and even races below the Supreme Court. But all of these races are important. If you don't think the president needs your help because he's going to win, that doesn't mean you don't go. If you don't think Bernie doesn't need your help because he's going to win, I think the answer is you still need to go out and make sure that we support you and the Supreme Court candidates to make sure we hold on to this court. It is so essential to make sure that happens. And then all the others, all the other races across the board that are up for election in November as well.
Absolutely. Make your voice heard. Make sure you send a message that Ohio is a state that we believe in values. We believe in common sense, rule of law issues, and we need to make sure that folks get out there and send that message.
Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on. I don't know how many people know you, but hopefully they get to know you a little more and a little better after this. I know you're working real hard around the state. We're going to continue to push, get your name out, and make sure that people vote for Judge Dan Hawkins, and we get you across the line in November. So again, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much, Jim. Good to see you, and thank you again for having me.
Appreciate it. Again, I want to thank you all for watching this edition of the Buckeye War Room. These races are important. All races are important, from the president to the Senate, to the Supreme Court, down to our state legislators. We need to elect Republicans across the board. Get out and have your voices heard. We're going to continue to push forward. And again, this is Jim Renacci signing off on the Buckeye War Room.